Hello, everybody. Oh, my goodness. And welcome to another edition of Courtside with Christy and Gabe right here on the Her Hoop Stats Podcast Network. I am Christy Winter-Scott, joined as always by my guy, Gabe Ibrahim. Gabe, listen, hey, we haven't connected because you went to your first WNBA draft up there in New York. I went to the Final Four. We were both at the Final Four. So it's been a busy couple of weeks here, but I don't even know where to start. To tell you the honest truth, there's so much to talk about, but I guess we have to start with the Final Four and the championship game and the lingeries after that that carried over about women's basketball. 10 million viewers. There were 20,000 people in the arena. I'm just gonna round up. Okay, it was over 19,000, close to 20.
It's close enough.
20,000 folks were up in that thing, and it was so ridiculously exciting. It was fire. The whole tournament was fire, but the Final Four was insanely good.
I thought it was well, I've only been to two, but of the ones I've watched, it was my favorite, just because the stadium was electric. I mean, I thought every game, really, Iowa and Virginia Tech and LSU, great crowd. Then you get to Iowa, South Carolina, which was a legendary, the greatest basketball game I've ever been to. And then you get to LSU, Iowa, which was another just amazing crowd, amazing environment. And just a showcase for women's basketball. I think a lot of people got to see what we've been telling them, right? Just sit down and watch it. I promise you, just sit down and watch it. You're going to have a good time. And a lot of people did. And now, I have people coming up to me and talking to me like, oh, they know I work in basketball. So now I get to talk a lot. People are always like, hey, who's Caitlin Clark? Who's Angel Reese? Who are all these people? They all have opinions about it, which I think is just phenomenal for the sport.
It is. And it was incredible numbers, incredible momentum for the sport of women's basketball, but also incredible momentum for women in general to show themselves on that stage, and for people not only to talk about it, but respect it and sit and watch all the games, right? But 10 million. I was just blown away by all those numbers and just the growth, the continued respect that women's basketball has earned, over time. And every March, having played in the Final Four eons ago, it was still exciting for me. A minute ago. But for me, and I haven't posted anything about this because some things I like to keep to myself. People don't really believe that. They think I post everything that happens to me, and I definitely don't. But I haven't posted this yet. And I don't even know if I told you this because I saw you in passing a couple times there, but I don't even know if I told you this. But man, I ran into Cheryl Miller, Gabe, and I totally internally passed out, just because, just what she did for women's basketball when she came through in her era, and to have her in the house, she walked right past me, and lucky I was turning and speaking to someone this way because she walked right past, and I would have missed her had I been engaged in, in what was going on. But for me, I'm always everywhere with my surroundings. But I was talking and I looked up and I was like, no way. And just everything from that moment for the next 10 minutes was slow motion and surreal. And I was 10 years old again, and I hadn't met her maybe I met her probably 10 times in total. One time I met her when I was in high school, and I met her then, and that was my first time. I had pictures with her and everything. It was like fangirl. And then a couple of times when she was coaching in the WNBA with Phoenix, because my girl Monique Ambers, if you're watching us, my dog, she actually played for Cheryl Miller, which I was just like, oh my God, you get to be around her every day. But anyway, just over the years, just as a broadcaster, she was actually a broadcaster. She was an analyst on the game that I played in the Final Four, which kind of led me to be in broadcasting, seeing her sitting there and almost getting knocked in the head with the ball in the layup line because I was freaking out that she was sitting there. But anyway, I digress just for a moment. But that's what it's all about, the growth. When I'm talking about the growth of women's basketball, it's on the shoulders of people like Cheryl Miller, who engaged me full on and let me hug her and hold her and cry my eyes out in a happy, joyful way. It was insane. And then she grabbed my arm and took me over to where her phone was so she could take the picture on her phone. And I was just like, oh my God, Cheryl Miller's grabbing me by the freaking arm. But it was just like, we were the only people in the arena at that point. I mean, there were 20,000 people in there. For me, I was 10 years old, 12 years old, whatever. And having her do that, it was a moment I'll never forget. I will post about it, but I just haven't been able to gather my thoughts about what that truly meant. But I always said, if I ever see her again, I was going to tell her how impactful she was in my life. And it sounds like so major and dramatic.
It is, though.
But it really was, like, for me. And I'm at the point now, I'm telling you the flat out truth. I'm not going to lie to people. I'm not going to say things that I don't mean. And so just to bump into her that way, and like just turn and see her and like just fall out internally, like it was quite a moment. But for me to be able to tell her that to her face, and I've thought it before, but I just didn't have the gumption years ago to be able to tell her or form my thoughts to tell her that. But I said, man, if I ever see her again, I'm telling her that. So if you ever have thoughts in that way about people who've impacted your life, tell them on the spot. Okay. Because I'm so grateful to have had that moment in Dallas. So on top of all of the basketball games and, you know, the interactions with the players and the coaches and seeing them in that moment and reflecting on what that moment was for me as a student athlete, you know, it was just an amazing, I'm still decompressing from it, to be honest. But to top everything off, to see and reconnect and tell Cheryl Miller, thank you, man, I'm so full, and I just can't even quantify what that moment meant for me personally in general, but with Cheryl Miller, I don't know, just high volume joy.
It gives me a lot of joy to hear you tell it. Like, I'm really happy you shared that. And, you know, I think there's definitely young women and men out there that are looking up to you, and they're going to have the same story. So it's like it's like a coaching tree, right? Like Cheryl Miller got you in, you know, you probably got someone else in, they're going to get someone else in. Like, Deja Kelly was at the WNBA draft. That's all I could think about really was like, you know, this young woman at some point when she's done playing basketball, which is hopefully a very long time from now, she's going to be doing what Christy does. And she's going to be hopefully looking up to Christy in order to learn how to do it and do it right. And I just think that was really cool. But that is like the best part of these 2 weeks, honestly. I mean, you know, we love hoops. We love watching basketball, but it's to do it and be able to do it with people and talk about it with people who love it just as much as you do. Like, you know, running into coaches at the Final Four was just like, you know, I had to keep my cool, but like, you know, meeting Mike Neighbors was a big deal for me. I watch a lot of Mike Neighbors coaching tapes.
I love Mike Neighbors stuff. Yeah.
And he couldn't have been nicer. You know, I had a Kelsey Plum shirt on, the one with her smoking a cigar, and he loved that. And like, you know, it's just like, it was so cool to just make genuine connections with people just purely about basketball. Right. And then you get to know people, right? You know, you see, hey, we're like, we like the same stuff even outside of this, which that was, I think that what you just said though, like that story, like that is the best part of the Final Four from a media perspective.
Full circle. And, you know, the Dallas Wings had a party as well, and Nancy Lieberman was there. I'm just like pitching myself. I'm like, you know, being in the same space with, you know, Enrique Gumbawale, also, you know, and then you have Nancy Lieberman, just to, you know, the full all-encompassing generational joy of that was really spectacular. And again, I haven't decompressed everything, but gosh, man, it was for me, it was like basketball heaven. Like, I was just in my complete element, and obviously in the gym is where I love to be, but just to have all those other layers to it was just phenomenal for me. It was just fantastic. I can't even put it in any other way. So, but it was a great week. I know, tactically speaking, I guess we can dissect what went on in the semifinal games first.
Sure. Which one do you want to start it with?
I want to start with the Virginia Tech game. LSU. I thought that game was pretty phenomenal in terms of how it unfolded and how it changed. I mean, I think there were like 5 different games within that one game. Just tactically, I think that when you have a team like Kenny Brooks had, you know, with Amore, and obviously with what she was able to do, and people understanding that it wasn't just about Elizabeth Kitley, although she is an outstanding player.
She was great.
It wasn't just her. I mean, they had such a balance of production. But when they went to that zone, it really caused problems for LSU. They got themselves back in the game. What did you see in the, I think, 5 layers of game that was?
The zone worked. And then I think, I don't know. And like, you get to this point, right? And it's just so tough because your whole entire season comes down to a decision here, a decision there, a basket here, a basket there. And we'll talk about South Carolina. And I think, there's so many ways that both teams' strategies could have gone wrong, could have changed, right? Hey, LSU misses like one more shot. Then we're talking about how genius Kenny Brooks was the entire game. To me, I just thought he could have stayed in the zone a little bit longer. It's really easy to coach after the fact. Super easy to coach after a fact. But I did think, they LSU hit a couple shots, but then they, I think the zone was still working. They could have gotten a little bit more out of it. And just like the depth of Virginia Tech, I think came back to hurt them. And it's not, it's not their fault that they really only played 6 players. Those are the 6 players that were ready to play and available for them and that have been integrated into the system. One of those players was supposed to be Ashley Owusu. She was never integrated and then kind of took herself out of the situation altogether. But I think they just came back to bite them. Like, they had 6.5 players and then they got a little foul trouble at the end. Kitley got a little tired at the end. They're playing a team that's big, physical, and deep. And I think they just kind of ran out of gas. But to me, I think the way Virginia Tech carried themselves in this tournament, and I actually got a chance to tell Coach Brooks this after the press conference, I thought the way they carried themselves was just like phenomenal and inspiring. And like, it was something that I would hope that a team that I am a part of at some point can do, whether it's in basketball or anything. Like, I think they carried themselves with such togetherness and thoughtfulness and really put that into the way they played basketball. In that game, though, they just ran into a team that, maybe they were a little bit better. Maybe they're a little bit more talented. Maybe they had a little bit more players, and maybe they had a coach that has been there before, right? And that matters. That matters a ton. So I think LSU deserves a ton of credit. I just love what Virginia Tech did all season. And we're talking, and again, it's talking a couple bounces of the ball between Virginia Tech being in the national championship and LSU being in the national championship.
Yeah, and I mean, shout out Kenny Brooks, man. If you're listening, that's my guy. I mean, he won back-to-back titles when JMU was in the CAA and just had a phenomenal run there in Harrisonburg, Virginia. Took the reins over at Virginia Tech at a #1 seed this year for the first time ever in the history for the Hokies. Just a lot of respect for him and his body of work over the years. So just to see them battle that way. And like you said, the depth wasn't there for Virginia Tech. So, I mean, having gone through your first year as a coach this year, okay? So I know, okay, everyone has their own way and their own thoughts and their own reasoning, okay? Whether you've coached for a year or you've coached for a longer period of time. At what point during that second half, when you saw that shots weren't falling for your group, if that's you, if you're coaching Virginia Tech, and not saying that whatever Kenny did was wrong, because he did it right, okay? He did right by his kids. That's his choice, and that's how he does it. I'm not second guessing it, but I just want to see what your opinion is on this. Like, if you have players on the bench who probably, I mean, you don't know if they can help or not. Okay. You don't know if you can help or not.
But if they can help
see
or
your
not,
kids. Though. Well, maybe, but you don't know if
you see it in practice.
Okay. But if you,
so we ended up in the same exact situation. Yeah. We ended up at, like, our team, we had 2 injuries close to the end of the year. We're playing. I mean, we had 6 guys. Actually, it was like Kenny. We had 6.5 really of guys that have been in the system, that can play and that can keep up and have played in games. I think you got to trust the people that you trust. Well, and like Ashley Owusu was not on the bench in the second half because she got kicked off the bench.
What was the story on that? I didn't get that she got kicked off the bench. I thought it was on her. I thought she didn't come back to the bench or something. She was not. Well, we don't have to. I mean, if it's something that
I've heard Twitter rumors, so I haven't heard anything concrete. I kind of heard she
know that part.
Asked to leave because she was getting a little too friendly with her old buddy Angel Reese over at LSU. That may have been because she did say something that much was confirmed that she did say like Angel said something like "Tell him Ashley," and so there was a moment there.
Let me get my pinky out. Continue.
But so Ashley wasn't there, and I would not, and frankly, I wouldn't put her in. I can't. You know, I have to.
That happened. Like,
yeah, you ever heard? You've heard this saying. You got to dance with the one who brung you.
Yeah.
You got to go with the. If I'm going out, I'm going out with my players. But hey, we win or lose. The other team's tired too. We've done this all year.
Yeah.
We're gonna run the plays that we run. We're gonna do the stuff that we do, and we're gonna win or lose because of us. And if you do that, I think Virginia Tech left heads held high, not feeling like they accomplished the great thing they accomplished.
Yeah.
And I think that was important. So no, I don't try. I wouldn't try. You can't try things there. That's not the time to try things.
Can't try it. But isn't it? It's not throw the kitchen sink. We're losing momentum here, and you look down the bench, you see 10 bodies, and you don't want to tap in any of them.
I mean, if I know who, but
like at all.
Christy,
I feel you. I'm just testing the waters with you. I agree with you, and I probably wasn't as chancy either as a coach. But I just wanted to gauge your emotion when it feels like the game is slipping away. And your kids are fatigued. And I know you could call timeouts for fatigue. You've come down empty 5 straight offensive possessions. LSU has scored on 3 of their last 5 possessions, and you're not getting stops, and you're not getting buckets. And your kids are tired. And you look down the bench like, man, can somebody give me 2 minutes to plug a
But that
hole in the boat. Hey,
you see these kids every day for a year. Right? Like you've seen them every day since June.
Panic mode at that point.
You know who's going to contribute.
Feel you.
There's another interesting criticism of Kenny that we could get into of him not calling a timeout actually late in that game. LSU had gone on a couple runs. I think he called a timeout early in the 4th and didn't really call one until the end. And I'm actually I'm pro not calling a timeout, at least for them specifically. Right. Because, and I asked him about the game afterwards. I was like, hey, what does it mean that your coach trusts you in that situation and to not call a timeout and to not stop the game? I asked both the players and Kenny this, and they were like, it's so important. Like we need that trust is what built this program. Like that is why we're here, is because he trusts us in those moments. So I thought it was the right decision, and you got to go with what you've done all year. But I thought that was like, hey, I'm not going to – maybe you call timeout, maybe you don't. I don't think it really changes the fact that the other team has more bodies and they knocked you out of the zone already, and now things are kind of going downhill, and then it's quicksand and you're pressing on off. I don't think that changes it that much.
Okay. And I hear you. And I I was not a proponent. I told you I always try to keep at least 3 timeouts in my back pocket because that, you're going to have to figure it out. Look over at me, come over to me at free throws, and we can iron some things out that way and use it as a pseudo timeout. Like, no, I definitely agree with keeping some in your pocket and having your players and trusting your players, but having your players mentally go through it. Right. And make a read. I think one of the best things I ever did as a coach was not call a timeout, and the players just organically, it wasn't even a play necessarily. It was more about spacing. And I was like, oh my God, I had like 2 timeouts with a minute and a half left in a game. It's like a 1 possession game. And I'm like, don't do it. I'm not going to do it. And I squatted down, and all 5 players touched the ball on the possession. We got a drive. We got a paint 3 in the corner off of it. And we had reversed it twice. So it was like this beautiful music, right? And it wasn't on me. I was like, you guys understand this. We had juniors and seniors on the floor. And it was a choice that I had to make. It wasn't like, I'm not going to do it. No, it was like, should I do it? No, I trust them moment. And it happens like this. Coaches, it happens like that. And it was a championship game. And we ended up winning, thank God. But it was because of moments like that where you do have knee-jerk reaction moments where you have to make a choice or not, right? And trust your kids or not, okay? And not overcoach them. Let them play, right? And he did it. And it was, that's something that will always stand out for me. And a couple other instances, but that one in particular was most recent, and it just will always stand out to me as being like, get your hands off those kids.
Yeah.
and trust what you've taught them from November to today, and let them, let them go for it. Make her miss. If she had missed that shot, it was a good shot to take. Like it was a great shot in that possession for us. Everybody got a touch. We got second side, like we got a drive and kick 3. I mean, you got 10 toes in the paint and a kick out and a triple. Hey, look, that's what you live for, and you want that for them, because that, like you said, like the kids told you after the game for Virginia Tech, that gave them confidence. So now we have confidence going into the next round of playoffs, right? The next states or whatever was next, and
the next steps in your life, like it just matters that someone believes in you. Just like next, like for for Kiana Traylor, right? Like she's not going to be there next year. For Taylor Soule, she's not going to be there next year. They're both in the WNBA or in the pros, wherever they're going to end up. And it's like, hey, that trust that Coach Brooks put in you, that's going to last. Like that confidence that his trust put in you should last into into the rest of your playing career, and hopefully into the rest of whatever you're doing career. Like that's awesome to be trusted by someone who you care about and want them to have a high opinion of you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, it's character building. That's what you are. As a coach, you're a builder of character. And like what Don Stelly likes to say, you're a dream merchant for these kids, right? And let them live, right, in the moment, and let them make those decisions that you've taught them. I mean, you've guided them to those decisions that they're going to make. So trust that. And I think that's what we saw in Kenny Brooks. But, LSU, like you said, they came in waves. I mean, it was like the ocean, how in sync they were in that game to close it out. I just thought they had the momentum on the offensive side, but they also had the momentum on the glass. I think that was a difference maker in that game, especially down the stretch against the Hokies.
And they just couldn't, they refused to be put away. And I think that's a sign of a really great team. Yeah. If the other team can't get ahead by more than 10, if the other team can't, put 3 buckets together because you're saying you're not giving up a third straight bucket. Like that is the things that separates teams, and especially at this level, we're talking about the best teams in the country. I think that's what separated LSU. They were stubborn as hell. Agreed. We are not letting it happen. We're not letting it happen. Maybe you beat us in a different way. Maybe you don't put it together a run. Maybe our shots don't fall, but you're not going to beat us by just going on a run and we're folding. They never folded, and I think that's.
Agreed. That was the bottom line. No, I agree with that. It was the mentality. Say it again, Hank. Are we good, Gabe?
Oh, my mic is in and out at the moment.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I got you. But I mean, I think that, the mentality that LSU displayed down the stretch was the difference maker. And I thought that carried over into the championship game against Iowa, right? I think the momentum that they built, especially in that fourth quarter over Virginia Tech, when they just took the lead and never gave it back. I just think that carried over into the championship game. And I mean, but before we get to that, I know there was another game.
We got to talk about how Iowa got to the championship game, because again, that was the best game, the greatest game I've ever been to. Yeah. Probably the best game I've ever been. I mean, Caitlin Clark puts up Caitlin Clark puts up 41 points. The team scored 77. So she assisted on a lot of those other ones.
Come on.
There's no game. No one player cannot win any game in basketball. That's not how it works. She got the closest I think we're ever going to see at this level.
However,
she got the closest we're ever going to see at this level, because I mean, it was stunning. It was stunning. It was like, I don't know. It was like, why I feel like this is what watching Da Vinci paint the Sistine Chapels like, seeing like a great sculptor at work. Like it was art. It was beauty. It was just magnificent. And she just like, not only is she just like in the same way that Steph Curry is, like that sort of player of like when she touches the ball, you're on your feet, you're excited. Yeah. Not only that, in terms of those long shots, those step backs, her knowledge of the game, I thought is what came through. I thought she saw everything. And South Carolina, they wanted to stick to what they do,
right?
And they had to change. And then even when they changed, she knew exactly where to go with the ball, what to do with it. I thought she was just amazing in every single way.
Yeah. I mean, it was quite exceptional, okay, to watch how she would make a read, especially in the two-man game. When they were in that pick and roll action, the two-man game, at the nail extended at the top. South Carolina was switching everything. I was surprised at that they were switching 1 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
But they did it. But every time Caitlin Clark made that read on that switch, I mean, it was like straight down the lane. And they had to honor the 3-point shooting of the other players on Iowa's squad, right? So there was no one in there to help on that action. So they were just like, 5 out, and then let's get the two-man game up top. You're not going to come off of any of the other 3 shooters out there because they've been hitting. Okay. I don't know. It was just quite phenomenal to watch how she orchestrated and organized the offense, but also was able to make the proper reads, whether it was getting her 41 freaking points, 41 of them. Okay. In a game like that, against a team like South Carolina, who they knew they were going to give up second chance points. I mean, with how South Carolina just dominated the glass all year long, 36-0 coming in, 42 game win streak from the year before, losing to Kentucky in the SEC championship, in the SEC championship game in the tournament, and then winning a title, right? But then went undefeated. And they did this so well, right? They dominated the offensive board so well that Iowa knew that was going to happen, but offset that by playing efficient on the offensive end in terms of assist to turnover ratio. And we don't talk about assist to turnover ratio enough, okay, and how important that is. And yes, Caitlin Clark had her 41 points, but it was her distributing that was the difference in that game, right? Kate Martin got buckets.
Martin.
Come on. I mean, the flat out glue player. And then you have McKenna Warnock, right?
Dogs.
Who was battling on
the got the offensive rebound to end the game. The end of the game with the offensive rebound, Christy.
Like, talk about it. And then, Gabby Marshall, who was off her game in terms of her threes in that particular game, but was shooting like an ungodly 60% coming into the Final Four.
She did their work before the game.
Of course.
South Carolina had to pay attention so much to her. That's why she didn't score, because they were hugging her. And they created all the space.
That's right. And then you had the two-man game action because you had to honor the other 3 kids out there who could knock down shots. I don't care if Gabby was 0 for 12. They didn't allow for her to even take a high volume number of threes because, like you said, they were hugging her. They're not leaving her. They're not helping off. And then Gabby was like, let me just stay right here and open up everything else for Clark and Sonano, the law firm. They were just busy. And it was really beautiful basketball. And that's a Lisa Bluter word, so congrats to Iowa for that. But what did you find interesting about how Iowa defended South Carolina and how that was different than they had been defended throughout the year? Or if it was, did anyone else play them that way where they were totally sagging into the paint and giving up the 3-point shots to them? And some say disrespectfully so, but I mean, it worked.
It ain't disrespectful if you don't make it. It was disrespectful LSU because LSU made the shots in the championship game.
Okay, but they weren't giving them those. They did not play them the same way. They were making
but I think it was the most extreme version of what we've seen a couple of times. People sagging off, but I mean, Lisa Bluter loves the junk defense. And we say it's called junk defense. I just call it really fun defense. Honestly, that's what we should call it.
I like it.
It's fun defenses.
It is.
So she likes all that stuff. So I think it just was the most extreme version of that. And I think it relied a lot on Caitlin's knowledge of basketball. Because what doesn't Caitlin have defensively? She's not quickest side to side. She's not, necessarily the best on-ball defender. So what do you do with that sort of player? You put her in position to use her strengths, which are she's long and she sees the game better than pretty much any player on the court. And she got a couple of those plays where it was just like she knew where the pass was going before it even happened. Reading eyes, reading body language. Obviously the fouls helped. I don't want to. I know a lot of South Carolina fans are going to be mad if we don't mention the fouls. There were some tough foul calls. I think especially Aaliyah Boston's first charge call. That was a bad one.
That was Hannah Stokey took that, right? Yeah.
Manskull. Yeah, but and the second one I think was mediocre. But and like, look, everyone has refs. As I've said many times, you got to come in thinking that you're playing against the refs. Every single game is 5-on-8. You're playing against the refs every single game. So, but yeah, I think the fouls hurt South Carolina's rhythm offensively, certainly, but also they didn't know how to attack that sort of defense because they have been able to get the ball in the post all year long. I thought it was just brilliant of Lisa Bluter to put Caitlin Clark in that position, because a lot of times who you have out there is like a smaller guard in front of the post, and guess what? That doesn't really do much to the post. You know, they could still throw it over and just kind of get it in. South Carolina has done that. But I think, you know, the way they did it was really smart. I think it was the most extreme version of stuff that we had seen work a little bit against South Carolina. And I think Caitlin's knowledge really, really shone through there. And it was a really brilliant strategy to put, you know, someone who Caitlin's a decent defender, not the best defender though, into a position where she can be a really good defender and using that strength. I mean, that's what coaching is all about, right? Like Lusa had to find a way to put her in the right place to make a play.
Yeah, no doubt. Agreed. 100% with what you said, just about the strategy and the scheme against a team like South Carolina. But, you know, Gabby Marshall, for as good as she is on the offensive end, even though she didn't strike in that particular contest, her defense was spectacular in terms of her anticipation. I believe she had 3 steals, and she was right where she needed to be when they were trying to kick it back out up top to reset in the quarter court. Gabby Marshall was right there to take it and go the other way. Kate Martin as well a couple times. So I just think, you know, just overall, collectively as a unit, defensively, Iowa came up huge in this game. And for as beautiful as the offense was, and as much as I want to say, man, that 2-man game was spectacular. And they hit the mark every single time, perfectly placed passes, timing, phenomenal with the same starting group for 3 years. That's what you have, right? Chemistry and great reads. And what I was talking about, trust your kids, let them play. And that's what Lisa Bluter was allowing or permitting. I don't want to say allowing and permitting, but that's
game planning for.
She cultivated that. She cultivated that in them over the years. And it just came to fruition in a moment like that, which was quite spectacular to watch. But I just think for as much as we've been talking about Iowa on the offensive end and how they led the country coming into that game, 88 points per contest. Their pace was outstanding all season long. But in that game, pace was a big piece of why they were successful as well. But it was their defense. I mean, that was the X factor. That was the common denominator to their success. They got the stops, which enabled them to play at the pace that they wanted to play. They knew that they were going to probably lose the battle on the offensive glass, and I believe that they did.
It's 26-5.
Right. It was like, I was going to say 29-5, but 26-5 is still pretty wide margin there on the glass. But a team like South Carolina, I believe it was, they scored on 49% shooting on their second chance shots. And, you know, that's not counting if they got fouled on the way back up, you know, on those. So, I mean, 49% on your second chance shots, and you get 26 opportunities to do that. But then Iowa still came out on top. So it was about their defense taking South Carolina out of rhythm. And what do you do? Like, if you're a kid for South Carolina and you catch the ball and you get waved off, like, we're not coming out there. And sometimes it's like when you're talking and you can't, I mean, 20,000 people in there. We don't know what the kids are saying to each other on the court defensively. And obviously, if you're not talking, you're not playing defense. That was always what I said. You gotta be a chatterbox, right? Especially if you're playing like a junk or fun defense, you definitely have to be talking and making sure everyone's aware. So if you've practiced this, which they had, which if you've watched film, which they have, okay, you see someone out there like, well, we're not going out there. This took so much away from Caitlin Clark. Like, was it disrespectful for her to be like, I'm not going out there?
If you don't make it, it ain't disrespectful. If you don't make the shot, it's not disrespectful.
She didn't shoot.
Like, she was you gotta shoot it.
Here. Like, I'm not
you
going.
gotta shoot it. If you're on the court, I believe you can make a wide open 3. If you're playing for South Carolina, and Raven Johnson, to her credit, came out at some point. I think it was in the second half, probably. Yeah. She came out and she said, "Okay, I'm gonna shoot these." She was 3-6.
Yeah.
And then I love that Lisa Bluter was like, "Okay, make as many of those as you want. Go ahead." That was the part that I really liked, because Raven Johnson did. She responded the way you have to. You have to shoot the ball. You can't let someone do that to you. You have to shoot the ball. You have to make it. If you're on the floor, you got to be able to make a wide open three.
Agreed.
But I think she, and I think what Zaya did was also really brilliant. I mean,
I love her, man. I love Zaya. Can I just tell you, man, I was telling people, like, that's the one. And I know she led the team in scoring going into the Final Four and all that. And probably at the end of the year statistics, she was at the top. But, man, I just love the way she plays the game all year, not just in Dallas, all year long. I'm like, man, people are not talking enough about Zaya Cook. Like, she's an incredible decision maker. And take her off that floor in South Carolina, it's not the same team. Like, I don't think she got enough verbiage. I mean, we saw her get drafted and we'll get to the draft, but I mean, I don't know. I was just like really blown away by what she was able to accomplish this year in total.
I think she's a dog and I love her. And like, I just want her on my team, like whatever. And like there's nerds with their charts and, I know we work for her stats and a lot, but at some point you got to be like, okay, I know she's not shooting a great percentage from whatever, or like her, whatever points per scoring attempt is not there. I don't care. I want her on my team. She makes plays. And she's the only, in the first half, if they didn't have Zaya Cook, that game is a blowout.
Yes.
Forget about it. If they don't have Zaya Cook in that first half, they are not getting anywhere. I think she was just, she's been incredible all year. You're right. And this is something that,
love her.
Every time I talk to a person who played or coached, or they always bring up Zaya. Like Zaya is like, man, love her. And then when you talk to people with the stats or whatever, it's like, oh, shoot. I don't care what she shoots. Give her the ball.
Right.
So I want to shout out Zaya. So Zaya and Raven, though, like, hey, take it to him. You have to punish it. And if you can't punish it, then you lose. And that's kind of what happened.
Right. I feel you, but okay. If and wasn't a 3-point shooter, although in my mind I was. But I wasn't a 3-point shooter. But if that's me standing out there, if I'm not going to take the three, why not try to get downhill a little bit and make the defense commit? That's what I was wondering the whole time. I'm like, man, if they're not going to play you, you don't have to shoot the three. They want you to shoot the three. I get it. You don't have to do that. For me, it was like, can you get to the paint with the ball?
I don't think they should.
And then force the defense to make a decision. Like, force them to make these decisions, right? They're telling you, they're dictating to you what they want you to do on offense. Now you have to dictate to them what they need to do on defense, like make a decision. So if I'm being played in a drop coverage like that, like no one's on me for, 10 feet away, maybe 5 to 8 feet, but still a distance away. Okay. You're way away from me.
She's in the paint.
I can't stay right. And you're above the 3-point. Why not put the ball on the ground? Even if you're not going to shoot it, commit the defense to the ball. See what they're going to do. Like, what kind of decision are they going to make? I don't know. I think Zaya did a good job with that, but a couple times I don't think Raven did that, especially in that first half where
Raven had the drop though. Like they were trying to cover. They were trying to cover Zaya. It just didn't work out because Kate Moore and Gabby Marshall are good defenders. Zaya Cook's just better than them, right? Like she's faster and stronger.
Why didn't everybody do that? Why didn't everybody go?
Huh?
Why didn't everybody go to the?
I just don't think Raven. I don't think Raven had the lane because since they play with two bigs in the paint, Cardoso and Boston, and even if they don't have those two, it's someone else.
Okay. Listening.
And then they have Caitlin like in front of. Let's get the board up.
Yeah, let's get the board. Okay. Come on. Well, hello, board.
I got markers here.
Let's go. Get that marker. You have a good marker in there. Because sometimes my marker.
I got the fancy ones. Okay. So we have Boston here, Cardoso here.
Got it.
And then let's say Ravens over here.
Yeah.
So now we have this defender here, who's Monica Sanana, who did a great job, by the way. Monica Sanana did a lot.
She was loose.
And she got. I was really impressed. I mean, I know we know Monica's really strong.
Yeah.
How strong she was in this game was really impressive. I gotta make this bigger. You can't really see it.
Yeah. I can barely see it anyway, but I'm fine. I can.
Okay. So now we got defender on. Yeah. Now we got defender there. Okay, I'm gonna make Cardoso bigger. I believe this defender was here when the ball was on this side. So the ball's right here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what
her defender was like here.
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark was like
She
here, roving here, and roving here. So there was not
dribbles.
space for her to get in here, though. I would say, yeah, the pull up. Are you talking about pull up right here?
Yeah, get down in there, right at the nail, or like right in that little, that hoop, that little scoop area, right? That little line right there.
Yeah, I would
Under
say
the free throw line, a little semicircle.
I don't know how
That's
comfortable
just me. I was
these
wondering
players
that.
were. I don't know how comfortable these players were with that pull up, because that's. I think you're right. One of the ways to get around it is the pull up. I'm not sure how comfortable they were with that, or if the team was really comfortable with it, because like this is not a high percentage shot. Well,
No,
it's not.
no.
But
No.
at some point,
But it's
this
better
may
than not
become the
shooting.
highest. I agree.
I say, what did you say? What you were about to say something? I'm sorry.
At some point, you got to take it.
Yeah.
And especially because maybe you dribble here,
Right.
maybe you dribble here, and then she has to commit, and then we have a flash here, and then we have a little pass here. But then this defender is also coming over. It was great.
It was great defense, but it's like, it's chess match. It's like, that's what they're doing, but you can't like settle for that being all you can do. You know what I mean? It's like, for me, I'm gonna like empty out, like, and that's why I was sitting there like, oh man, what would happen if she took one dribble or two, right? What would the defense do? So for me, it was like, what would they do if that happened? And we just didn't see it enough, for my imagination, as my whiteboard in my head was working overtime during that moment. But just, how would they collapse that? And what else would that open up? And not necessarily to pull up for a fader, or I mean, not a fader, but a floater. It's not necessarily for that to be a shot, but to see what the defense would do. Like, what's the defense going to do if they do that? And I just thought there was, there were a couple possessions where it was just very passive for South Carolina, just to say, okay, we're going to drop coverage. They're down in the paint, and we're just going to hold it up here and swing it. They're going to hold it and swing it. I'm like, man, put it on the floor and see what they're going to do. And if that was wrong, then we go to the next option. But I just don't think that catching it and swinging it was, was ideal, I guess.
I think just South Carolina
started getting down a little bit.
I think South Carolina kind of got punched in the mouth. And then they, it wasn't that. I think they tried to respond, but sometimes someone gets that first punch and you're on your heels the entire game. And I think that really kind of affected them, especially for a team that they had the close games. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But they didn't have anything quite like this where, it was like the other team just really, really took it to them. And that was because of Caitlin. And I wanted to mention one more thing, because we should talk about something else. We should do this, Christy. Like, we should just watch this game together and then maybe like do a whole X's and O's thing, because I'm going to watch it again. We watched it right after the game. We went to the game. We recorded a podcast, we got some drinks, and we got back home at like 3:00 in the morning, and we all looked at each other like, yeah, I want to watch this game again. So we only watched the first and fourth quarters, but we watched it because it was so. But yeah, maybe we should just watch it, because I think there's so many X's and O's here. One thing I did want to point out, though, like, I thought the timing of Iowa's offense was just so good. Like, they ran, it was like perfect. It was like as soon as Caitlin took the first dribble, there was a stagger on the weak side being set. Yeah. And they ran off it, like, it was like perfectly in step. I think that's what really kind of took away from it. It required South Carolina to play 2-on-2 defense, which is not something you want to be doing against Caitlin Clark and Monica Sonano. You need 3 players there. And I think it just kind of, it messed with, in particular, Camila Cardoso, that she hadn't seen all that motion before. And so I think it was just brilliant strategy all around from Lisa Bluter. Amazing. Obviously, Caitlin was fantastic. Just they put everything together, and South Carolina deserves their flowers. Amazing year, one of the best teams we've ever seen, and they just got beat. And I just think it was so good for women's basketball to have the monolith again go down. Like, when UConn loses, it's awesome. When the best teams lose, it's like, you love it, because that means something great happened. And I think that was what happened in this game.
Yeah, and no doubt. I mean, after the game, Lisa Bluter said a lot of people in Las Vegas lost a lot of money tonight. That was her first opening statement. And I think, going back several pods ago with us, and you asked me who can beat South Carolina, and I said the Washington Mystics. And I was dead serious about that, because no one had proven to me at that juncture that they could do anything with them, with their size and their speed and their aggressiveness and their basketball IQ, their ability to get to the offensive boards and have that create so much more offense for them. I just didn't see it until the Iowa game. Then I was like, man, that clock was going down. I was like, they're going to do it. They're going to do it, And it was.
I didn't believe. When did you believe? I didn't believe until McKenna Warnock got the rebound. I didn't believe the whole time. I was like, "There's no way, right?" I was sitting next to Megan Gower, and like before the game, we walk in, and I'm like, "Can Iowa do like what happens if Iowa does this?" And the entire game, I was like, "There's no way South Carolina's gonna come back. South Carolina's gonna come back." And it wasn't until McKenna Warnock grabbed that rebound to seal a game that I actually believed that they were gonna win.
I don't know. I don't know if there was like one moment that I could pinpoint, but that one was quite it. If there were to be a moment, but for me, I think several people text me because I was standing up. I was like in the first like little section there behind the Iowa bench, sitting with Sue Marriott, and she's the coordinating producer for Big Ten Network. So hey, Sue, hey. But I was sitting there, obviously, with Megan McEwen as well with Big Ten Network. But we were sitting there, and I think there was the pull-up three that Caitlin hit in transition that my hair was on fire. I stood up, and I think I did my stomp, which I didn't even know I did until several people sent me the video of me standing up. Because it was ridiculous. Like she was in this zone, with how she was getting her offense, and how she wasn't going to be denied, and how, that place was packed, with South Carolina and Iowa fans, and they were going back and forth. There was just the energy, like you were talking about when we started talking about the Final Four. But just in that moment, I think that's when I was like, nah, I don't know what they can do to stop her. And I mean, she went for 41. But she had 12 assists too. And
8 assists, maybe. I don't know.
8 assists, something like that.
It felt like a billion.
I mean,
it felt like a billion.
It felt like a billion. But for me, I think it was that. And then I think seeing myself in that moment too, kind of maybe that was the moment that I'm going to go and just ring that one up as the moment for me, where I was just like, she is, what do I call it? The Beyonce song, Alien Superstar. That's what I was calling her. I was like, hey, man, like she's just dropping down from outer space somewhere, like hitting these shots. And, obviously she put the work in to be able to do that. But listen, I think for me, I mean, and some of those shots were contested. It wasn't like she was coming down. I mean, they knew who she was. They knew that they had to find her right over half court. And she came down, drifted to the left, bam. I was like, good God, man, What are you doing with that kid? What do you do with that kid? And she won the Dawn Staley Award. So there's this reverence that Dawn Staley has for her too, with what she's able to do. And talk to Dawn when she got when Caitlin Clark was named Naismith Player of the Year, and she was named Naismith Coach of the Year. And she just said that, she is a phenomenal talent. So there's so much respect all around, with both teams, all 4 teams, and all 300 plus teams for that matter. But for me, I think it was, when Caitlin Clark just let it fly, with hands in her face, and it didn't matter. She just didn't care that they were there. And she just went for it. I think it was just so, it was so incredible. And to have littles in the gym, with Caitlin Clark jerseys on, and, I don't know. It was just
I'm
going to
buy me a Caitlin Clark jersey. I think my sister wants a Monica Sonano jersey, so I need her to get on a team.
Oh, law firm.
I'm
gonna get on both sides of the law firm on the front.
I gotta get. You know what? I do have to get my sister a law firm shirt. She'd like that. My whole family got into it. It was so great this year. It was awesome to have them all in it.
I can't believe one little rollout saying law firm with Clark and Sonano turned into like a major deal. So that's fun.
Into them going to the Natty, which we should talk about Natty. I think I could do like, I don't know, 15 hours on the South Carolina Iowa game. Like if anybody needs like a full length documentary series on this, like please let me know. I have so many things that I could talk about, but let's talk. Let's give LSU some love here. Actually, we have to start with something that I just want to get off my chest. I've said this before, and I want to say it here. The refs were miserable in that game, and not because The rest were miserable, not because they gave one team an advantage and the other team not an advantage. I don't care about any of that. Like I've always said, you play against the refs every single game. You come in, you say, we're playing 5-on-8. They are not on our side. They're never here to help you. So LSU would have won that game regardless of the refs.
Okay.
I thought they were terrible. They just tried to take control of the game. They called so many fouls. They set a record for the most fouls called in the national championship game. They made it so choppy, and they made me, and I am extremely resilient to try to complain about the refs because I've understood now that I need to control myself, or else I'm going to get kicked out of a lot of games. So it takes a lot now for the refs to make me mad and comment on them. And by the second half, I was just yelling at them. I was just so disappointed with how they affected the game so much. And again, it was still an awesome game. Great performances by the players. I thought it was, a wonderful showcase. But the refs really, they did a number on me in that one. They kind of took me out of it. And again, not because it was fouls going one way or the other. It was just so many that it took away from the flow of the game. Yeah,
I mean, they weren't familiar faces to me. The officials who were on that game. What was that about?
I looked it up. So I'd seen a couple of them at the ACC tournament, but the person I always expect, and this is super inside basketball, but like Dee Cantner, I don't know how to pronounce the last name. Dee, she's like one of the sweetest people. You've talked to her. She had gotten an award
in the NBA.
Yeah. She got an award that weekend for her. She's been reffing since like 1985.
Wow.
So it's like I thought all postseason, the person I thought that handled the game the best, not that made the best call, she didn't. She messed up a couple. I'm sure she would tell you that. She would say, "Hey, I didn't get that call right." She was so good at communicating and maintaining the flow of the game that I thought it was a mistake not to have her. But all of those refs had been in Final Fours before, because I went back and I looked. I was like, what? I'm going to make sure that these people, that they were there. So they had done games before. I think what happened was probably they got tight because they got a lot of criticism from that South Carolina game and maybe letting too much contact go in the second half or something. I don't know. But they just came out in that game and really called it really tight. And I just thought that was the wrong decision.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there were several instances where, some calls were being made, and I don't know, it was a lot. I mean, there was a lot of discrepancy from both sides, right? And there seemed to be maybe a longer rope on having those discrepancies, one side or the other. And if you watch the game, you know what I'm talking about. Without saying it, you understand what I'm saying. But I just think that, that fourth foul on Clark, when she got called for the tech, when she, like, I think Sonano had gotten the foul, and then she whipped the ball behind her back. But I don't think it hit anybody, right? I mean,
did you see the explanation for it?
I did, and I did not think that explanation for that fit the book of rules.
Right.
I thought that was not the intent of that rule, and you tried to bend it and stretch it to fit the moment, and it was wrong. I think it was wrong, and
well, it's also they called the wrong
for LSU that were not so great, but that one in particular stood out to me because she had just picked up her third, and then boom, got her fourth, and it was incredibly impactful for what she was doing on the team. And they had just made that 12-0 run, and the momentum was kind of going their way, and then I was like, it just all went away, and I get banished. Like, they got ghosted in that moment, like the moment, and ghosted, like God.
And again, like I would be consistent. I think LSU wins that game regardless. That fourth foul, if the explanation that they gave after the fact that it was the second delay of game call, and I said this in passing when we did the reaction podcast. I was like, wait, isn't that a team foul? Like my dog is barking.
Puppy.
Hold on.
Okay, he's hungry.
He's just needs attention. So I said that in passing, and then I caught up with Evan Galberto because we go to the same gym here in Falls Church, and he was like, "I heard you say that, and that was correct because that was my first reaction. That the second delay of game is a technical foul, a team technical foul,
but they put it on
one
Caitlin.
That counts. They put it on Caitlin. So to me, I'm sitting here saying someone either messed up or is lying. I think someone's met. I think they just thought of a reason to give her that call after the fact.
Right.
We lost. Oh, there we go.
I'm good. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good. So I just thought that was like someone's either lying or someone messed up, because that was not that cannot be the correct call in any universe. Regardless.
Yeah.
Still a great game. I mean, we got it. Jasmine Carson. I mean,
gosh, how about her, huh?
A player I legitimately forgot about her.
Well, she hadn't scored in 3 games in the NCAA tournament prior to that championship game, and she was averaging 8 points and went just ridiculously, got on fire, and just never looked back. I mean, she was incredible for LSU. And I think, with Angel Reese picking up her foul situation and being taken out, I think if that doesn't happen, we're talking about the calls being like, wow, what's going on with the calls? The most calls ever in a Final Four championship game. But wow, if Angel Reese doesn't get in foul trouble, we don't see Carson. And
she doesn't have that moment.
Carson doesn't let it fly and go for 21. Like, well, I think, things happen for a reason. And for LSU, it was a bonus that they went on that massive run with Reese on the bench.
And that's again,
that's how it goes.
Great teams do. That's what great teams do. They find the way, and I think specifically Kim Mulkey's teams tend to find the way in those situations. So I mean, you gotta give them credit, and I think this game was less X and O heavy for us, just because I think it was choppy, but it also just was like these 2 teams just kind of lined up and tried to play, and that's what happens when you play a game 2 days before that you have a week and a half to prepare for, right? Yeah.
I wish they had one more day.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And it was early too, because that game was at 3:00, so it wasn't really like. And I'm not
less than 24 hours.
Whining. My tone is whiny, but it's like rest and recovery is big, and they have all the pressers and all the things they have to do, with the clinics and meet the kids, and not that you shouldn't do that. You have to do that to continue to grow the game. But I just think if you're going to do all these extracurricular things, that they need time to be still. I mean, life is going so fast. Sometimes you need to go slow, right? And have a day where you just don't have to be fast all the time. Like everything's going so fast all the time. Like just sit down somewhere, right? And go slow, go with the flow, and like, I don't know, decompress some. But I just thought, there was a lot of discussion on the afterglow of that championship for.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I want to hear your takes here.
Yeah, man, I have takes on takes. I've been talking to so many people about it. People, like you said, come up to me, ask me about it. At Trader Joe's, like we were talking about it all the time, everywhere. But I just think, for me, there's context that you can apply to everything. All right, and hear me out. All right, there's context that you can apply to everything. Okay, so when Caitlin Clark waved off Raven Johnson, okay, when they were in their defense, and maybe it was subconsciously, and I'm not making an excuse, but on the court, like I understand, and let me look around, let me survey and see, I'm not going out to that, and maybe just subconsciously did that. It wasn't like, oh, you stink.
I think she did it on purpose.
You think it was you stink?
Caitlin's like the biggest. It's Caitlin. Of course she did it on purpose. Personally, I love it.
I just think it was in the moment of basketball. It wasn't like you stink. It wasn't like that. I'm not going to. And I mean, her hand motion was like that, but who knows?
I think it was to dare her to shoot.
Or maybe she was just like, I'm back here. Oh, she got it. I'm not going out there. Like things are.
I think she did it because she wanted. No, I think it was a thought, because you know who would do that? This guy. If I see you on the 3-point line and I want you to shoot that thing, I'm going to tell you, go ahead, buddy, shoot it.
So that was okay. That was her.
Look, that's going to affect. That's kind of brilliant. Like I think it's really smart to get someone mad and then make them want to shoot. I think it's. I think she did it on purpose, because I would do it on purpose. Absolutely.
Okay. I don't know. Okay. So that happened. And then in the Louisville game, Iowa game, I think Iowa was up 15 in the waning moments of that game. And Van Lith said something, and to Caitlin, and Caitlin was like, shut up, you're down 15. But they're good friends. They played USA basketball together. And again, I'm not trying to make plea for Caitlin. But she did say that, right? And she did do, the hand gesture. Okay, so the hand gesture in that game wasn't, let me go run over to Haley Van Lith and do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your take on that moment? And then we'll go forward with the other stuff that happened, which is a lot.
I love every single second of it. So I'm a huge wrestling fan. That's one thing people have to recognize about me. I'm a big WWE fan. So first off, her doing the John Cena to me was a very big deal because like, I love this. I do this all the time. In anything I do, you can't see me all the time because I love wrestling. And so to me, it's like, I think it's like something, I'm not like a big talker. I mean, I love the hand motions and all that. I don't talk a ton. I don't think like a lot of like our players talk a ton. I don't care as long as it's between the lines during the game. That's my whole thing. During the game, between the lines, you're supposed to be talking.
Live ball.
Well, anytime. No, if it's during game time, and you're between these lines, we ain't friends. We can be homies right after. We're talking. And Charles Barkley always talks about this too. Is like, hey, when we get in between those lines and the game and the clock's going and we're playing, I'm talking because that's how I think a lot of players get themselves going by talking and listening to other players talk. I think that's just so cool. I love what Caitlin did. I know we'll get to what Angel did. I kind of love what Angel did. Although I think there's a difference there. I know what you're trying to get at. There's a difference here between that because I think that was more strategic than anything else. That was trying to play the defense. And that was also trash talk, which is great. Strategic trash talk is amazing.
Yeah.
And then the Haley thing, I mean, she was going up to her assistant coach, and like I do that all the time with our players. The players are coming off. I'm like, we do stuff like that.
Put the jacket
up. Swell up. I hit him with the two. I hit sometimes with too small.
Did it with the the other night. I did
Yeah, you got hit, and so I like all that. I think between the lines during the game, I ain't got no problem with it. As long as you're respectful after the game, because that's what matters. Like you have to have respect for the other person, but the player, when we're playing, we talking.
I hear you. Mm-hmm. I was up at 1 a.m. watching the overtime game, the play-in in the NBA. And I know we're her hoop stats, but this is just, I'm trying to do a comparable contextual moment here in hoops. Okay. So, LeBron passes it. Schroeder hits the 3 in the corner. Schroeder does it too. Boom. Cold-blooded. Boom, boom. Right? Everybody knows cold-blooded. They're in a stance. They're both doing that. Okay. What's the difference if LeBron goes up to a player, goes up to Cat on the Wolves and goes right over, like runs to him and goes, boom.
It's significantly cooler.
What's cooler? Wait,
it's so cool. Are you kidding me?
Wait, what's cooler, that he went over to him and did it in his face or did it in general?
So as a person watching the NBA just for my entertainment, absolutely would have been awesome if he went over there and said, ice in my veins, you don't have it. You don't have it. Or something like that.
That's all I'm saying is the difference.
There's a big difference. I understand where you're getting at. That Angels was, it felt more personal. And I think that's right. Like it did, and it felt more personal. And I think it was after, not after the game, but like
game was pretty much over.
Yeah. And so I get it. It feels a little bit more disrespectful to the person. And so from that aspect, I get it. At the same time, again, as someone who's watching this primarily for their entertainment and for the love of the game, I love the game. But like, I just thought it was so entertaining. I just like, yeah. And like, I don't like, it's not because I love Angel Reese or whatever. I don't like Angel Reese. And that's awesome. That's awesome for the sport. I need someone to not like. If not, it's just people I like.
I hear you.
You can go, Christy. Go. Say what's on your mind. Say it. We're an hour and 4 minutes into this podcast. Anyone who doesn't disagrees with us is out. It don't matter.
They're probably left already. Okay. Yeah. Okay. For me, okay. I've tried to look at this in a lot of different lenses. Okay. I've looked at it as a teammate of Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. Okay. I've looked at it as a coach of both of them. Right. And as a mom of both of them. So I'm looking at it all these different ways. And I love that there's been, I mean, I've heard it on the radio. Oh, leave Angel Reese alone. Let her live, and put her hand up in her face. Caitlin did it. And I'm like, Caitlin didn't do the same thing. Although the motion was the same. And then they clip the motion, but they don't clip the context behind how Caitlin did it as opposed to how Angel did it. And to me, yes, it's entertaining. Yes, to me, I love fire in the belly. And as a player, I thought I was way more animated. And I think I've told you this before. Yeah. I was fired up for my teammates, more than for myself. Going back to watching Cheryl Miller, it was the same way for her, the same way for Magic Johnson, the same way for a lot of players that I admired when I was growing up. But for me, I think, the integrity of the game gets compromised when we're comparing players that way. And I didn't like the comparison of it. The fact that it happened, it happened. Okay. But don't compare it and say, this is the same thing that happened. And you're looking at Angel in a different way. You're looking at Caitlin. You're not, right? Both things happen because both players play with passion. And I love that. I love that. But when you are saying that they did the same thing and why is one worse than the other, it's not the same thing for me. Conceptually, it's not the same thing. So don't do that, okay? And don't pit those women against each other. And I think Caitlin Clark tried to water that down right after by saying, I love Angel Reese. And she's a great player. And that's all it is. And then it turned into, I've seen these memes where they've developed wrestlers, one is Angel and one is Caitlin, and Angel's actually punching Caitlin Clark in the ring. And I'm like, why are we doing that to each other? Why
them in a ring.
Women? Well, I know you say you like all the wrestling and stuff, but for me, I'm like, why are you pitting one against the other? Okay, let's not do that to our women. Okay, let's permit our women to walk in their passion, however they want to display it, and let them be who they are, right?
See, I disagree with this.
If Angel Reese is who she is, then let her be that, right? Caitlin Clark is who she is, let her be that. Let's not say one is better than the other because of how they did the facial expression thing. Stop doing that to us. We're allowed to have passion. We're allowed to be who we are unapologetically, and stop trying to pit us against each other and say, oh, you have it one way for one player and then the other player, you on her back. And I'm like, stop doing that. Okay. Let's just respect the game for what it is. Let's have integrity in those moments when our women are displaying their emotion, which we are completely allowed to do. Unapologetically. Ask Serena Williams, ask me, there are so many things that I could say about my personal attacks that I have received on the way I exude my passion. But I don't care, because that's how it goes, right? I love the game. That's how I'm going to do it. Angel loves the game. That's how she's going to do it. Caitlin loves it. She's going to do it this way. But let's not have them be competitors in their passion. Let's not do that, because that, I think, is shredding the game away. And everyone's like, oh, it's so good for women's basketball. It's good that you're finally seeing that 10 million people are seeing it. I think there are more eyes on it. But Caitlin Clark also said, hey, I mean, we're not the only two people that talk trash out of 300 some teams. But they're trying, to paint this picture so badly that they hate each other and that they're pitted against each other. And this one did it and she gets, scrutinized, and the other one does it. And she's her way of showing passion is displayed in a different way. That's not the case. And so stop trying to make that the narrative.
I see what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Let them live. Let them live.
I think,
that's all I'm saying. And stop trying to crash
to your
together.
point, people said, oh, Caitlin never gets criticized for this. y'all can go right here on the Her Hoop Stats YouTube channel. Go look at our shorts. We got Caitlin Clark video that I posted last year that has a bunch of views. Y'all can go see the comments. People hate Caitlin too from way back, and it's because of the fact that she exudes that passion. But I love that. Like,
yeah, but stop hating. Why do people hate that? Why do people hate?
I think people hate people are haters, but like people hate LeBron. It's like, that's good. Like, don't like LeBron. Fine, don't like him. I personally love him, even though he left my team. Like, I love LeBron. And I think for Caitlin and Angel, it's like, it's kind of great that there's people who don't like you. Like, and I agree. Like, I hate the fact that like, it's when Angel and like, hey, look, there's a bigger discussion to be had.
There is.
But like, Caitlin gets a lot of heat for everything she does.
She does.
Angel's going to get a lot of heat for everything she does. Why? Because they're the best players on the court.
Say that.
If LeBron did the thing you said before, if LeBron did that, right, he'd get a lot of scrutiny too.
He would.
And so I think it's like that's a bigger problem in terms of who is talking about this on the national stage and how much you're actually paying attention.
Yeah.
But I do kind of like that they're pitted against each other. Like, this is awesome. Like, if we get an LSU-Iowa game next year, this is going to be lit. And I'm going to make trust me, if we have an LSU-Iowa game next year, your boy is making a whole WWE montage about the rivalry and I just want it to happen because I think it's fun.
Yeah.
But like, I agree on like, there's too many people that took it too serious. It's like,
where I am with it.
It's like, it's not that serious. Like, you either like it or you don't. Angel doesn't care if you like it or you don't. Caitlin doesn't care if you like it or you don't. They're gonna hoop regardless. So like, I get what you're saying. I think the narrative being pushed of like, Caitlin never gets.
Don't do that.
First off, women in general, anytime they show emotion, are gonna get criticized. Like, we know this, right? You know this. You've been through it. You've lived it. Like,
living it still. Actually
living it still, and like it's always like that, and hopefully I think it's getting better because we have more people like you pushing back on it. We have more people like me agreeing that's ridiculous. I really do like that there's a little bit of a rivalry right now. I like it.
I love a good rivalry. I do. But let's not make it, let's just make sure that we understand the context. Let's just make sure we understand who these women are. Let's just make sure that we're not saying, oh, she did the same thing and compare it that way. Let's have integrity with what we're spewing. Okay. And let's Angel, talk to me.
Here, question. You're Angel's coach. Because as a teammate, first off, I'm like, that's lit. Let's awesome. Great. Like, if I'm her teammate, like, let's go. Like, you want to do that and start a fight? We're in the fight. Like, great. I think as her coach, it's something that I'm like, hey, that's in the moment. And I know you feeling yourself and all that, but like, it was a little bit extra and a little too personal, for my opinion. Like, and I think you have to know the player and understand how they're going to react to you saying that. But like, that's probably where I'm at. Is like, it was a little bit extra. It was a little personal. Like, you can gloat, you can taunt, you can point at your chest. I love that stuff. But like, don't like pointing at someone else. It's like kind of cheapens it a little bit to me.
Yeah. And that's
what I'd tell her if I was her coach.
No. And that's why I said, I saw it from, I saw it as a parent, as a coach and teammate. And I agree with that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if my teammate ran over there and just beeline to an opponent and did that, I think I would see that and run over there and grab her, because I would think there would be a response from the opponent. Like, is that going to be a brawl? Okay. Because that's an emotional moment, right? You already know you're going to lose the game. You're losing. You know you're going to lose the game at that point. So you're already down. But just to be kicked while you're down, it kind of sucks. And I get it. So as a teammate, I would go over and try to protect my teammate, from any, reaction that came her way. But Caitlin Clark said she didn't see it. So anyway, kudos to her for that, not reacting or seeing it or reacting. Anyway, but if I'm a coach, I think I'm definitely like saying, hey man, like the integrity of the game. Like, I feel who you are, I know who you are. But hey man, we got like, if we got a golden rule that, right? If the scenario was flipped, would Caitlin have beelined over to Angel and done that? I don't know, right? But I think as a coach, I would kind of like try to say, hey, we don't need to do the extra. Like she already knows they lost. Like that's it on that. And then you have
who knows, maybe
you have recruits watching and recruits' parents watching that too. And I heard after the game, you know, in the presser, you know, the comments were, I don't know. See, Gabe, go get me in trouble, man. Okay, this is what I heard. This is what I heard Kim say. Okay, Kim Mulkey. She said some coaches have a problem handling big personalities and players, and I just want ballers. And I mean, you want ballers, yeah, but you also want ballers who have, you know, created a level of integrity for the game too. And you don't want that flip back. So you don't want that flip back. And kudos to LSU for winning the title. To come out of nowhere and not playing a tough schedule early in the you know, prior to the SEC portion of the season, getting dominated by South Carolina, you know, in the SEC competition, and then facing a team like Iowa. I get it. And so I'm not taking anything away from what they've done. I'm just saying, from my view, my opinion, however much it matters to anybody who's still listening to this pod. But for me, I'm like, man, if I'm, you know, if I'm coaching and I'm, you know, I don't know if I'm going to say, I just want you to ball. I don't want to say that. I want you to be a good student. I don't want you to have a 1 point whatever GPA. I want you to be diligent in that. I want you to crush it in the NIL world. I want you to, you know, become the woman that I know you could be. And not just these 4 years as a baller, but in 10, 20 years when you're not balling anymore, let's let your character hold you in a place of integrity and respect. So I think it's bigger than, I don't care about their personalities and I just want them to play ball and win titles. I just don't think you should minimize it to that. It should be about everything else that they can be and who they can become as strong, powerful, passionate, fiery young women who respect each other, right? There has to be some level. And I know you said you would be living for the moment if she ran over and did it, if LeBron ran over and did that. I get it. I get that. But as Dawn Staley said, a dream merchant, right? I mean, part of that dream is who they become later in life and what should be permissible and what should not be. And as a parent, that's my kid. I don't know what I would say to that, because I don't think any of my kids would do that. Number one, because I think, and I'm not saying not my Sally.
No, just literally great. Your kids are not like that. I've met them. They're
who knows?
They're just not like that.
Who knows? They might be. I don't know. But if they did do something like that, man, either way, right? Either to my teammate, Gabe, if you're my teammate and I go like that, like, hey man, I've got 41. I'm like out here hooping. And I'm in this moment, you know, going over to the bench for a timeout. And the camera catches me doing it, right? If that's the context of it, I think it's just different than running over in a moment of loss for an opponent in a game like that. So and go and seek somebody out and be, you know, in my ring, baby. Like
as Caitlin's teammate,
I don't know. So
if I'm Caitlin's teammate, Angel Reese is 1,000% catching an elbow there. There's not a question in my mind. There's not a question in my mind about what's going to happen. That's why you could do all that.
That's why I would go run and save her. That's what I'm talking about.
If I'm an opponent,
ugly. But well, then that becomes what the story is of the game, which it almost has become, right? Which it almost has become. The trash talking has overtaken the tactical beauty of what happened in that game with LSU winning. It became, you know, who was right in that moment. And I'm like, dang, it shouldn't be about that, because that's always been present in women's basketball. So stop saying it just how, it's about time they've talked trash. They talked trash for a year. Like, stop it. Like, stop trying to create like this all of the sudden situation of women playing with passion. Stop it. It's been there. And stop trying to create this narrative that it's a brand new thing and it's so good right now for women's basketball. You just have more people watching. And this has always been the case. So stop playing with me in my face and saying that this is a new deal. This is not a new deal at all. And thank God there wasn't a bench clearing situation, because that would have overtaken even what we're talking about now.
Bench
Well, how about that fight?
Look,
Those women were just like, come on.
I don't
Play
think you
the
go bench
game.
clearing. It's just
And
next
clap,
time
shake a
down.
hand. Like, get out of here.
Shake
a hand
you
and
can do
go.
it. You can do whatever you want. My point is, the regulation system is, oh, you're gonna do that, I'm gonna elbow you directly in the ribs on the next time down. And you want to start a fight, you can start a fight. But that was a response. You did that, I'm gonna hit you so hard in the ribs that you're gonna lose your breath. And if they kick me out this game, I don't care, we're gonna lose. So like,
I mean,
to me, that is the regulation system. And like, so if Angel wants to do that, then do it. Just understand that some other teams are not going to be quite as understanding as Iowa.
There you go.
Because some other teams going to come up and they're not going to take too kindly to it. So I think that's the regulation system, is like, hey, you can do whatever you want. Just know that. And this is the thing. And this is the thing with this. There's a couple more years for Angel Reese to get her come up for that situation. And she, at some point, it's going to happen that someone's going to beat her and they're going to go right up to her face and go, and then we'll see how she responds to it. Right?
That's why you just don't do it. Because that karma, man, is something else.
I ain't going to tell someone not to do it. I'm going to tell someone to experience the consequences of your action. You didn't have to there. Great. Consequences always come around. So, I mean, I don't think, personally, like, to me, like, again, I don't have a major problem with what the Angel did. I mean, I would tell her, like, hey, that was a little extra. That was too much. Like, you know, but I think what you said after the game was, like, respectful to, you know, she was very respectful of Caitlin. Like, she was not like dismissive of her. And I think that's the way, you know, you have respect for your opponents outside the lines, which is the first thing I said, was like, but, and I think the Mulkey comment, you know, to a certain extent, you know, that's kind of what I expect from Kim Mulkey. Not that she's the most entertaining person I think I was around.
I mean, that she spoke her mind too. I mean, that's her opinion.
Well, and who knows what she's doing behind the scenes, right? Because I feel like it's with Angel in particular, you know, we know we know Brenda is a demanding coach in terms of everything you do, right? You have to do things the right way. And so with Brenda Freeze at Maryland. Yes. And so we know that strategy did not work out for Angel Reese. Right. So if you're a coach and Mulkey's one of the smartest, you're going to say, hey, right now, I cannot say anything that is not going to be supportive of this player, because if not, I'm going to lose her. So who knows what was said behind the scenes? Or, I mean, personally, I'm going to guess Mulkey was all about it, but who knows what was said about behind the scenes if Mulkey did go up to her at some point and say, hey, you know what? Like, I didn't really love that. You know, maybe that works a lot better than her saying, oh, you know, we talked about it and it was wrong or whatever. Like, I think to me, there was an opportunity there that they could have taken to discuss it. Also, you know, I want to get your thoughts on what I just said, but we're at 122. So I don't think we can do the WNBA draft in the transfer portal. In this podcast.
We got to do it different. We can do the.
We'll figure it out. We'll talk about it after, but we do need to wrap up soon.
I got you. And I'm just going to tag, you know, like you said, that if you were Kim Mulkey, you would say something to Angel about that being extra. If you were Lisa Bluter, would you say something to Caitlin about her being extra?
Depends on the situation.
Okay.
I don't like when you, like, I don't care about, like, again, this to your team is fine. If someone's talking to you, fine. I think there's a difference between that and, like, really showing up your opponent. But Caitlin's done that too in the past. I mean, the video that I posted on YouTube that y'all can go see the hate comments on is her in Nebraska, and she hears booze and she's like, "Give me the booze." Yeah, and it's like, hey, maybe some people may think that's extra too, and maybe it was. I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, it's context dependent, as you mentioned at the beginning. It's context dependent. And I think in the national championship game too, your emotions, you have a longer leash to let your emotions get the better of you. Yeah, I just think you have a longer leash. So yeah, maybe I don't say anything if I'm Angel Reese's coach either. Maybe I don't. But yeah, I wouldn't say anything to Caitlin about her stuff either. So maybe I don't say anything if I'm Angel's coach, and just trust and believe that when it comes back around, because this game always comes back around, and I don't care who yours. It's going to come back on Angel. That's when I want to see your response. To me, as a coach, I want to see your response in that situation.
Right. And that's all I'm saying. You know, that's all I'm saying. You know, let both of these passionate women live. Okay. Mm-hmm. Within who they are, not in a comparative moment. That's all I'm saying. That's my point. Like, stop. And people who have never watched the game, like people I hear on the radio, like you don't even watch women, like you haven't even seen them play this year until that moment, or you saw a clip, you didn't even watch the game. So let's make sure that we are considering the source on who is saying these opinions about the moment, and stick with us here on Court. Christy and Gabe.
We've been criticizing Angel all year. No, I'm kidding. I
mean, we've been on here.
Good for her. I'm happy for her.
But we've also talked to people about it. We've had discussions with people who are basketball oriented 24/7, like we are, right? And we're able to, form our opinions based on that, as well as our basketball experience. So that's just my opinion. I mean, I'm always going to be for passion. I'm always going to be for fire, especially for women standing in their true, genuine selves. I'm always going to be for that. I'm always going to be for that. So don't get that twisted. But what I'm not going to be for is trying to create some infighting between women who have the same kind of fire in the belly. Don't do that to us. Okay. Let us be free.
Get them in the WWE ring, like the Cavenders. Another thing we got to talk about in the next podcast.
We are not doing the W, but we will go to Paris, and we will say that, hey, we're going to Paris for the South Carolina Notre Dame game. Yeah.
Someone fly us out.
Hey, we're going.
Neil Ivy, I know you got the budget.
Get out.
I'll game plan. I'll help game plan. Christy and I will help game plan. Go. Just get us out there.
We're going to be on the Champs-Elysees. We have Courtside with Christy and Gabe on the Champs-Elysees, honey. Yes. And in the fall, we're going to get flued out. Paris. Okay, on that note, we're going. All right, we're out of here. We don't have to go home, but we got to get out of here. They're cutting the lights out on us here on Courtside with Christy and Gabe right here on the Her Hoop Stats Podcast Network. We have so much more to discuss. We took all this time with just the Final Four alone. We have the transfer portal and the WNBA draft to dissect as well. For my guy, Gabe Ibrahim, I'm Christy Winter-Scott, and we will see you next time.